All right, everybody, welcome. It's the first PH Creative Clinch webinar. It's Create Digital Experiences that Matter to Candidates, and we're joined by Dave Hazlehurst from PH Creative. We don't have Bill Borman with us today. Unfortunately, Bill has found himself 40,000 feet in the skies above the Atlantic on a delayed flight, so we will not be able to make it. He did offer to dial in from his Android phone, but we've decided that wasn't going to work. So before we get started, we're going to have a couple of housekeeping items. Anybody feel free to ask questions. You can use the question box in the GoToWebinar control panel that will have popped up on your screen. Or you can ask them on Twitter using the hashtag DigiCX. If your question is not answered today, someone from the team or either PH or Clinch will follow up with you after the webinar and try and address it as best as possible. We're also going to record this session and it'll be sent to you following the presentation for your own purposes or to share with some others. So let's get started. So first of all, I'm going to let Dave introduce himself.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. I can't help but chuckle about thinking about Bill 40,000 feet in the air with his Android phone, but there you go. So it was great to get together with Shane and all the team at Clinch. I work at a digital agency called PH Creative, based in the centre of the universe, which is in Liverpool in the UK. And we work a lot in the talent space, especially around putting people first and the experiences that we create for them, in particular digital with career websites and talent attraction, and how we make people feel and think about those brands and help ultimately attract, engage, and recruit them. So really looking forward to getting started. Looking forward to getting started, which like Shane says, if there's any questions as we go along, we'll be capturing them and we can answer them at the end. And often on reflection, sometimes when these webinars are finished, people think, oh, I wish I'd have asked that question. So just reach out, jump on the hashtag DigiCX, or just ask us on Twitter and we'll reach out to you. So just to let's get things kicking off and started. One of the first things that we need to be thinking about is the candidate persona, and I'm just trying to get the slide to move here.
Just before you kick off into that, Dave, the way the format of this webinar is, it's going to be approximately 35-40 minutes as Dave and I will take you through the slides, and then we'll reserve 15 or 20 minutes at the very end for any questions if they're necessary, okay?
Cool. Thanks, Jane. Okay, we've managed to move the slides. That's good. That's a good start. So the first thing that we look at when we're actually thinking about the experiences we want to create for people, the first thing is, do we really understand those people that we want to attract, be engaged, and then get them to do what we want when they visit our website? So we look at what we call candidate personas. Now, it's been around now for a couple of years, especially in the talent space around, do you understand the personas and what's important to them? Now, in the world of marketing, this is something that we've done for many years now. And actually, there's a really famous quote by a guy called David Ogilvy, who's like one of the marketing and advertising genii from the marketing world since the 60s. And he has this phrase, which is, the consumer isn't a moron, she is your wife. Now, he hasn't actually met my wife. However, what he's saying there is, how intimately and how well do you know your customer, or in this case, how well do you know your candidates, and have you built an archetype and character of this persona? Because if we don't really understand them, if we don't know what makes them tick, if we don't know what their routine's like, what influences them, what motivates them, and very importantly, what's their pain, what do they go to bed worrying about at night, or when they come to your website, what are they trying to solve? What questions have they got in their minds? What information are they looking for? What objections might they have? If we don't know that information, how can we speak to them in the right language? And how can we actually encourage, engage, and convince them to do what we want? And actually, if you think about it, you might have a relatively small career site. You might have a big one with lots of different job families. So it might be HR, it might be marketing, it might be IT, analysts, call center staff. And all of those are almost like candidate persona groups that all have individual different needs, wants, motivations, fears, etc., etc. And if you just think about it for a second, the way you would speak, say, to a HR manager would probably be quite different the way that you would speak to somebody who is maybe looking for a job in customer service or a call center or even in a retail store, as an example. And if you were to speak in front of those people, if you're in the pub now having a chat with them, you probably have different conversations. They'd ask you different questions back. They'd be looking for different types of information. And you would respond differently and you'd be interested in them so they can become interested in you. And clearly then, if we can define what those things look like, it helps us understand those that we want to connect with. And then if we take that a step further, once we understand who they are, and often with our clients we may have 4 personas, sometimes we have 8, but even if we just look at say 4, we then want to look at what would their user journey look like. And there's a couple of things here that we use with our clients that can really help you out. So the first thing that we look at is okay, the HR manager. So we've got the HR manager as a persona, and that's somebody we want to bring into our careers website. We want to look at how we could build a talent pool, talent community, and we'd like to look at how we can get them to apply for a job. So the first question is, it's candidate persona, it's HR manager. Where do they come from? So it might be, right, well, they've gone looking for a job online. It might be they come from a job board. It might be they've gone into Google. You type into Google, HR manager jobs in Liverpool or London, wherever it may be, and where do they land? So let's say they land in the home page. So imagine now you're walking in their shoes. They land into the home page, and the first thing is, what would they expect? What would they expect as a HR manager when they land into that home page? Then, what would they feel? So, what's going on in terms of emotion? What are they thinking? So, what do they expect to see? What are they feeling? What are they thinking? And then we've got to start thinking about, okay, in terms of what should be on the page to help them feel the right way and think the right way, and then convince them to take the next step on their journey. So it might be the HR manager comes to the homepage and goes, okay, this organization looks interesting. I'd like to know what it's like to work there. What are the people? I'm in HR. I'm really interested in the people. What is it like to work with them? Is there videos around there? Where can I go? What's the work-life balance like? Whatever you've identified that's important to that candidate, what would be the journey they would take from the homepage onto the next page, and then eventually ended up at the job detail page, and how do we convince them? So I understand the candidate persona, the motivations and the questions that go on and how they are feeling. We then apply that to as a HR manager landing at the homepage, I expect this. I feel like this and I'm thinking this. The thing that will convince me to move on is this. When I get to the team page and find out about the people and the HR team and the leaders and all the lovely employer brand and EVP stuff, I expect to see this, and it makes me feel like that, but what could make me feel better is this, and I've got these questions on my mind to answer this information. Then I'm going to go to the job detail page, and we go through the same process. So the user candidate journey is something that's really vital when you're thinking about your careers website.
I think it's interesting as well, Dave. There was a report I was reading literally on the plane this morning, and we can circulate it afterwards. It's the last 4 slides of HubSpot, the state of inbound, and they go specifically into recruitment, and they go as to what people are looking for to find out about. And of course, it depends on the role. So, for more senior roles, people are quite often looking for the size of the opportunity. What is this role going to mean to them in terms of furthering their career? Whereas for other roles, customer service role may be a good example. It's things like, well, where am I going to be sitting each day? Who am I going to be sitting beside? What is the team I'm going to be working with like? And again, part of that process is trying to figure out, using these personas, what information each of these candidates want, and then trying to deliver to them in as contextual way as early as possible in that journey, so they can then select themselves in or out of the process as being not a fit for that particular role for whatever reason.
Yeah, and it is interesting, Shane, because one of the other things that you need to continually put back into this sort of feedback loop is, how do you continually learn from your personas of what's important, not just from looking at Google Analytics and looking at the data and the insights, but actually just by speaking to them. How do you find out what's really important? One question that we ask that's really interesting is, why did you almost not apply? Not why did you apply, but why did you almost not apply? And that can be a really interesting one.
We've
Okay.
implemented that for a couple of clients, and what they do is there's anybody who starts to apply or carries out a call to action gets an email from a senior person in the organization saying, "Thank you very much for taking the time to visit our career site. Did you find what you were looking for?" And that is starting to highlight very quickly the things that are missing. So in some cases,
Yeah.
people are saying, "Well, actually, I need childcare. Do you guys offer childcare?" "Oh yeah, we have childcare." "Well, why don't we talk about it on those pages then?"
Yeah, that's a great point, that Connor. That's a great point because it's simple. Voice of the customer. We do this in the e-commerce world. So we work, with like the Tesco's and people like this. And you'll be amazed, in live chat boxes and feedback mechanisms online, what you learn. We worked with printers actually, and the 90% of what people asked about in live chat was, where's the A3 printers? But it wasn't clearly signposted on the website. Guess what we did? We made it clearly signposted. We sold more printers. It's exactly the same. So really learning from that is vital.
I think we all forget sometimes that just asking the question is the easiest way to get it rather than to get involved in fancy analytics or any very elaborate sort of technique. Sometimes just asking a person, did you find what you're looking for? Or what were you looking for that you couldn't find? Or why didn't you complete? Will sometimes elicit the answers that you actually need to improve things. Anyway, we're going
Yeah,
to move on now a little bit to SEO, I think, Dave. Is that right?
yeah. So now, what's been really fascinating for us with some of our clients over the last 12 months is the value of what SEO has brought in terms of talent attraction, and then the quality of people coming into the site and the hires. So the way SEO, a lot of people, are kind of like, okay, what is this SEO thing? Very, very simply, it's about being high up in Google when your candidates go searching for the information about you, your people, your brand, what it's like to work there, and indeed they go looking for jobs with your organization. But are you found first? So when there's a trigger or impetus, trigger or stimulus, sorry, where someone goes, do you know what? I'm thinking about changing jobs, or I wonder what it's like to work there. Are you found first, or do your competitors get found first, or indeed do recruitment agencies get found first and they get to the candidates first? Now, Google has changed massively over the years, and it's really important how you create content that matches what users are looking for when they go looking for it. So they have this thing called the 0 moments of truth. What this is the stimulus happens and people instantly start to go looking. So they go online, they go offline, they go to Google, they go to social channels, etc., etc. And the data that's coming out is they look for 14.5 sources of information. But if you think about it for a second, it's almost like, what's the biggest job board out there? It's actually Google. It's where the vast majority of people actually start a search, is Google. Now, they might not be looking for a job. They might be looking for a separate piece of information or something about employer brand or what it's like to work there or what you'll do with CSR or whatever it may be. But actually, that 0 moment of truth when people go searching, if we get our SEO right, and we really build that into the foundations of our careers website and the content that we create and get it in front of those candidate personas, then we've got a much better chance of being found. Now, some of the information that we've had with some of our clients is we found that people who come directly from Google and find brand-led content into a careers website are actually 3 times more likely to be hired. And one of our clients is a big building society. It's the number 1 building society in the UK. They've worked a lot on their SEO strategy, and they've worked really, really hard. We have this thing called the top 100 questions. So it's almost like, what are the top 100 questions the candidates would ask for in relation to working with us, or the subjects that are important to them about what goes on in their sort of professional world and what they're doing. They've worked really, really hard to create great engaging content and also get their EVP out there and resonate with those target personas based on what's important to those personas. And they've actually gone from over £1.4 million in job board spend to 0 because of SEO. So I actually think SEO is a huge untapped opportunity. And really, it's just about being found online when candidates go looking for it. And the simple analogy that I use here is, imagine you walk into a library and the library is just full of thousands and thousands of books. The trick is when somebody goes to ask the librarian about what it's like to work somewhere, for example, you want that librarian to recommend your book, and your book is a book full of highly engaging, relevant content in the right context at the right time that the librarian picks out and goes, hey, this is a great book, and this is one that I'd really recommend to you. So with SEO, there's a huge untapped opportunity. And just, I was looking at this just before the webinar, Shane, and we're seeing that the SEO strategy that's in place with some of our talent clients is 40 times more valuable in the amount of job applications it generates than social media. 40 times more, which is incredible.
It's really interesting because I think, and if anyone has any doubt out there that people start their search for jobs in something like Google, and then waterfall down to places like Indeed, who are very, very good at SEO, by the way. All you have to do is think about what happens when you go shopping online, what happens when you look for a holiday online, what happens when you are about to book a restaurant or book a holiday. It becomes Google search, find the list of opportunities or the list of places you're interested in, start to do some research, and we see this behavior as candidates pass over Clinch on their way into applying for organizations. They will start in Google, they potentially waterfall down into one of the aggregators, they'll end up on a job landing page, they'll potentially get some content there or not if it's an ATS system that has been blocked off from exposing itself from an SEO perspective to the wider world. They will then look at the content. They'll leave. The passive talent will leave, and it will come back days, weeks, and sometimes even months later. And it will quite often come in from a different source. It might come in from social. It might come in the day before they apply. Quite likely, it may come in from Glassdoor because they're doing the equivalent of a TripAdvisor. They're checking that they want to actually go through with this just before they hit the buy button. So I think that behavior is very, very similar. And I think we've all been trained by all the online retailers and the online sites how to behave online, and we've naturally transferred that into how we shop for jobs now.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's human behaviour is moved online, which again that kind of leads us.
Yeah, it's kind of exciting to interrupt you. It's kind of exciting though, because the great news is if you're a brand and you have jobs and you have content, it's very easy to get a leg up above people who are just putting out blocks of text and apply buttons, because Google wants to get people across relevant content as quickly as possible in that journey. So it's not difficult to get yourself a little bit your head above the parapet, to get your brand up there in terms of a potential employer, because Google wants to deliver people a rich experience, and you as the employers are in the best position to do it. Indeed can't do it the way you guys can do. Indeed can do really very clever SEO about opportunities in different locations, but when it comes to content, to video, to people's stories, to pictures, to imageries, that's when the actual corporate or the individual brand has the upper hand.
Yeah, I mean, and that leads really nicely onto Google RankBrain. So you're absolutely spot on, Shane. The experience is a really big deal now. It's such an important thing. And actually, everybody listening here, candidate experience is at the center of everything that we're doing. So Google RankBrain, they brought this thing called DeepMind. It's their artificial intelligence, and it's part of how they look at content now. It doesn't rank websites, it ranks content, it ranks pages, it ranks places that it has trust, places that has expertise, and actually gives content it's relevant with the right context, at the right place, at the right time on any device. And Google will reward you for this. If you think about it, in the world of business, if you give people a great service, a great experience, you're likely to go back. If you take me out for a meal, Shane, or a beer somewhere, we go to a great pub, I'll be like, God, you know what, Shane took me to this meal, it was brilliant last night. And I'll start telling people. It's the same. It's the same online. Google's customers are everybody who searches, and it wants its customers to find what it's looking for, that answers the questions, but gives it a great experience. And that's what RankBrain is now all about. It's not about SEO. Is not about let's throw a few keywords in there and what's the density of this and all this kind of stuff that's years old. It's about great content that's relevant and gives a great experience and being focused on them. Now, what's really interesting is the human behavioral side of this, because we're moving into the world of voice search. So just, let's just think about that for a second. We type in about, 40 words a minute or 50 words a minute, but we speak, especially like me, because I'm a scout and I talk really, really fast. I speak probably about 120, 140 words a minute, and voice is different. Like my son, Google Junior, Louis, his first girlfriend, Siri, he speaks to Siri about his homework. And this is where we're getting now. And he does, I'm like, what are you doing, son? He's like, oh, I'm asking Siri about history and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, oh my God. But if you think about it, if we understand the questions our candidate personas ask, and if we answer those questions in great ways through content, then actually we're setting ourselves up in a good place, not just for Google search online and through a phone and, when we're on desktops and tablets, but we're also setting ourselves up in a good place to answer questions that are relevant through voice. It's a really important thing that we need to be thinking about, because they reckon by 2020, over 50% of all search will be done via voice. So we need to be ready. And it comes back to understand your candidate persona, get your platform right, get your content right as well. Okay. So that's a little bit about setting the scene, talking about personas, and thinking about it from a talent attraction point of view. Actually, SEO's got lots of value, and then matching content to that, and then what's coming in the into the future. Now, career websites. I'm sure we've all got one. Most of us have probably got one out there somewhere. So that's, we've all got ATSs. We've probably got some CRMs in there. It might be content managed. We might be happy with it. But it really is a central place for your target candidates to come and learn about you. This is a hugely valuable tool. It's really, digitally, it's the hub. It should be the hub of your talent attraction. It's massively important for the experience. So, think about that Google Zmot. They go searching online. They find branded content. It's all over your candidate experience. It's presenting your employer brand. It's helping them feel and think something about what it might be like to work there with you. And so it's a massively important part of what we do.
And I think you raise an important point there, Dave, as well about content, because your careers website and your content, it should be on your domain. It shouldn't be on a third-party domain that belongs to somebody else. Because we'd often have calls and they say, oh, well, people can find out all about us. They Google us and we have an employer branding page here and we have an employer branding page on these other sites. This content really needs to be on your site so you get the benefit of all that SEO. And also because ultimately, that's what gets the candidates in front of your jobs and not somebody else's. Because sometimes if you have content on other sites, all you're really doing is helping those other sites aggregate viewers that they can then decide which jobs they put them in front of. So really it's important to have these sitting on your domain.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the diagram that's on the slide now, that really does sort of tries to illustrate that. So if you're looking at the screen now on the left side, a lot of ATSs, so the ATS systems are actually, they're very much designed to help manage the recruitment process, but they're not necessarily designed to help the candidate and to help your content be found. Indeed, there are many ATS systems out there. Actually, what we can see here at the top is they actually, that dotted line there, they block the job and the job detail pages from actually being found by Google in the first place. So coming back to the analogy of the librarian, this is like the librarian doesn't even know that a lot of the chapters in your book exist. So if he or she doesn't even know that those chapters exist and can't even read the content in the first place, because Google does need to read this content to be able to present it in front of people. And how the hell can Google show your content? And with some of our clients, it's been a bit of a problem, because what you want it on the right-hand side where we've got the recommendations. You want Google to be able to read the content. You want Google to be able to read about the categories of HR and what goes on in your HR world or in the marketing world and what it's like to work there, and the job detail stuff. Now, if you flip this into e-commerce, what goes on with most ATSs at the moment is it's almost like, imagine shopping at ASOS or John Lewis or a big e-commerce site out there, and you go searching in Google for the products that they sell. Google wouldn't even know that John Lewis sells its whole product itinerary, because it wouldn't be able to read the pages in the first place, which is absolutely crazy. So it's really important that you have A, the technology, or A and B, a plan to make sure that the relevant, rich content that's going to attract and engage these candidates can be found and read by Google. Because if not, then it's not even going to find it. And the aggregators are going to get to pick to your candidates first, the job boards, and whoever else is fishing around your competitors for these candidates. So it's a really, really important point. Now, some of the things. One thing that works well when you're thinking about the content is there's an acronym called EAT, which is EAT. And so it's a Google acronym, and basically it stands for expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. So what we want is you want to, over time, create content that demonstrates your expertise or how much you care almost about that, what it's like as a place to work, but also about the people and what people can bring to you and how you encourage them, and you really care and show some expertise around what you do and what you do with the customer and how your people impact that. That over time, with content, over time, builds authority around the topics of that content. So the topics that are important to your target audience, creating content over time will start to build your expertise, and then it develops trust. And Google loves this. Over time, your content builds trust. And the more trust that we build, and it looks at things like how often do people come back to your site, how long do people hang around, what's the engagement levels like on your content. It will then start to show your content more often and raise your visibility online and in Google. So this is some of the stuff, it's really important when you're thinking about the structure. Can Google find it? What type of content are we putting out there?
And I think content is really interesting as well. Certainly in the world of recruitment marketing that Clinch operates in, we always use content for a number of reasons. One, it's to initially get those visits, but then it can also be exchanged for for someone signifying interest in the organization. So even simple things like, repackaging the job description and some of the details about the organization into a PDF download is a really, really simple but successful way to get people who are not prepared to click on an apply button, but do want to walk away from that research sort of phase of their journey with a piece of content. It could be content you have across the organization already. It could be white papers that some of your team have written. From an example we've often used for executive and legal counsel hiring is quite often they will repurpose the company accounts. Again, a piece of content that's available for the candidates as they come in and are looking at the career site and are figuring out if they want to work in the organization, that it's content that can be repurposed. So I think, sometimes people go, oh my gosh, we don't have a lot of content, but generally there is content lurking around the organization somewhere.
Yeah, that's a really good point, that Shane. So just talking on on that, there's a couple of things there. Obviously, we want people to apply for the job. That would be seen as like a macro goal, a key goal for the site. But you're absolutely right. Downloading information is also another goal, because that's when we download something in return for an email address, say, or some information, we're getting an opportunity to build a database, or in this case, a talent pool or talent community, which we can then begin to nurture over time. Now, something that we know works well on websites, in the B2C world, in the B2B world, and in the talent world, is offering great information that helps me with pain, or makes me think differently about what I'm doing. So if we just go back to say the HR manager, and we've identified that a HR manager is concerned about, might be thinking about how technology is going to impact people analytics and how it can help improve his or her role in the next year or two. Imagine if in your organization you had some experts who have got an opinion on this. So actually, to make it easy, rather than you having to create the content, just interview that person, or maybe say 3 or 4 HR managers, maybe the HRD, HRC, a couple of HR managers. Talk to them about what they think the future pains of HR are. Weave into there something around technology and how we're seeing it and how would we solve that problem. Now, that's an interview. You just created a really interesting piece of content, and you can turn that into an ebook, a download, even a white paper, and then put that on your site and get that in front of your target audience. And now they've got a rich piece of content. Actually, do you know what? I'm actually interested in that. I'm interested how they would go about that and what their thoughts are. And so they might not apply for a job, but they could definitely download it, and now we've got them in a talent pool. So actually, there might be people there thinking, crikey, how am I going to come up with all this content? Actually, interviewing your people who are already working for you but are a reflection of those target personas you want, and interview them about future pains is a really easy way of generating content actually could resonate and really bring candidates towards you. And we see that a lot on websites that works really, really well.
I know we're about to get into heat mapping and stuff, Dave, but certainly we see in the data that we're tracking that when you put the person who's doing the job on the page beside the job, sometimes that block of content will get way more engagement from the passive talent than the actual job description itself, because they'll use that to try and figure out, do I kind of look like this person? Maybe my educational background is similar. I might click in, I might look at their LinkedIn profile, and they will use that as to supplement the sometimes the poorly written job description that we have to deal with to actually make up their mind if they're going to be a fit for the role or not. And I think, again, back to the people who are looking for opportunities, I think if you can start to showcase people who have done that job in the past and look where they are now, that hugely speaks to the opportunity that your organization can offer these people, and a route to success for people in their careers as well. So I know we flicked into heat maps here, so I'll let you speak about that briefly.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to add to your point there, a couple of the things that are really, really important here are, what you're talking about there, Shane, is how you help the candidate looking at your website see themselves as a mirror reflection in your organization. So you're absolutely spot on. So this is just an example of heat mapping, but placing somebody in your organization who is already been with you for a set period of time, they started, their careers progressed, they've done a great job. Just having that person on a job detail page so that the reluctant candidate viewing the page goes, do you know what, that's somebody just like me. That draws them towards a call to action. Now, heat mapping, which I've just flicked on because we just started to talk about it a little bit. If you haven't tried heat mapping, it's something I really, really urge you to try. Now, we have analytics and we can look at certain metrics, but what heat mapping does is it allows us to see the behavior and the hotspots of how people move around a page. And it's really, really interesting. On this page, we can sort of see where people are, and we can see down the bottom where it's getting hotter, which is after the keep in touch, and we can see the form. People are starting to click around there, and that's important. Now, with career sites, what we've seen, and I might just pop back one slide there. What we see that's really hot, and this is almost you're going to be saying, oh, that's really obvious. But if you look at the Nationwide site there on the left, the search bar, obviously from a homepage, is vital because people want to be able to find what they're looking for really, really quickly, or find the job that they're looking for quickly. And actually, that they are red hot in on a talent site. And what happens is sometimes the search bar is too small, or the way you allow people to interact with that search bar is too small. And heat mapping will show you how people move around. And then the other thing that's really important is buttons attract clicks. So when it comes to heat mapping, and we see this not just in talent, but on loads of e-commerce sites, often they'll have imagery. Like they'll have a tile or a main mast banner, and there might be, a statement or a message, but they forget to put a button on. And if you forget to put a button on, believe it or not, people won't click it. And I know it sounds obvious, but you put a button on, and the button attracts clicks. And often the heat mapping or the conversion of those buttons can be altered by simply having a different call to action around it or on the button, or even changing colours. We've changed colours of buttons from like red to green and improved the conversion rate by about 27-30% just by changing the colour. And these things are really important because what we're doing is we're taking all that effort to bring people in. What we're also doing is we're working really hard to convert people, whether it's to get information to put them in a talent pool for the download, whether it's for them to actually apply for the job. And the better we do that, what does that demonstrate? That shows that we're giving them a better experience. Google loves that, and we get more visibility. So heat mapping, there's actually a tool called Crazy Egg, and you can check that. It's crazyegg.com. And it's a simple bit of code, and just put it on the pages, and it's fascinating what you see. And then you can look at how far people scroll. So there's a thing at the moment, everybody's got to have a mobile responsive website. But what a lot of people are seeing with heat mapping is when you're on your phone and you're looking at the jobs results. So you're looking at, you might search for HR jobs, and then there might be a list of 5 HR jobs. There might be 50 HR jobs. If you think about how you would thumb scroll through it on a phone, it's actually a hell of a lot to scroll through. And it's almost like, Christ, the user's getting thumb cramp here. And what you can see with heat map is how far will they go. And that might inform you and go, do you know what? We might need to change the way that we do this to help that experience and to improve the behavior and get them to do what we want.
We've seen a lot of that. Now, Clinch does a lot of heat mapping, and we do 2 different types. So what we do is we look at an aggregate level, is the page getting seen? Did the people go far enough down the page to hit the call to action that might be the talent network? It might be the apply. It could be something else. And then we also do it at an individual level as well. And there's some really interesting stuff coming out of it. So a couple of things that we're seeing is not every candidate is the same. So there's this sort of range of visitor from very, very passive to very, very active candidates. I describe people are very actively looking for a job. In fact, they're actively looking to make applications today. They've kind of set themselves a goal for the day to get a certain amount of job applications done. And we'll quite often see them come in and they'll make multiple applications. They'll end up in the ATS, and then they will, and then a good proportion will unfortunately be disposed of. And they're the people who will come in, they will ignore all the content on the page in many cases, and they'll make a beeline straight for the apply button. The talent that's at the more passive end of the spectrum, because it's there researching your company, trying to figure out if they're going to be a good fit, if it's going to be worth their while, they're the ones who start to look around and look for more content. And they're the ones ultimately that you all have visiting your career pages, but you just don't know who they are because it's a very binary process. Either apply, don't apply. And if you can give these people other ways to identify themselves, you really can, target this kind of, and it's a target-rich environment because these are people who are highly skilled, they have roles, but they're just looking for a new opportunity. So I think they're the ones that are really often the missed opportunity of a career site. Because you've paid to get all the traffic in the first place. You've paid for it by advertising, by SEO, by just having put the money into the career site. So anything you can do to attract more of them and allow more of those people to figuratively put their hand in the air and say, you know what, guys, I might be interested in connecting with you. I'd like to know more about your company, the better for your recruitment processes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, it's everything you've just said there, Shane, outside of talent, for many years now, we've done this conversion rate optimization process, and it is literally about we're doing all this marketing activity to bring people in. And in this world, it's job boards, it's LinkedIn, it's aggregates, it's whatever else it is. And actually, if we could make the salesperson sell better when they get to the page and engage them better, then we're just simply helping improve our cost per application and our ROI. It's actually, there'll be people out there that will have X amount of thousands of, visitors a month. There's some out there that have hundreds of thousands. And actually, it's not putting more traffic in. It's helping convert that traffic. And that's exactly what we're doing.
And it's even, as you know, Dave, in e-commerce, it's even slightly deeper than that. You'll go the whole way to the sale, whereas ironically, sometimes in a talent acquisition, we look at the apply rate, whereas really we should be looking at the hire rate, because the apply rate that doesn't convert to hire rate is just wasting everybody's time. It's wasting candidates' time applying for jobs they're not going to get. And equally, it's creating poor candidate experience for people. It's making extra work for recruiters because ultimately these people have to be disposed of in some form or other. And really the trick is to try and figure out what content you can deliver people, but to allow the right people to self-select in, make the applications, do well at the interview stage, do well when they speak to the hiring manager, and help the people who are maybe not going to be quite so suitable for that role to actually say, you know what, I'm not quite ready to make an application there. I probably wouldn't do so well in that process, and save themselves the trouble and angst of an application that are not going to be successful.
Yeah. No, it's a really, really good shout. It's a really good shout. In fact, one of the clients that we're working with at the moment, they've figured out that it takes them on average 6 minutes to reject a candidate at a certain stage, and they're looking at how they take some e-commerce principles and reduce the amount of 6 minutes. Basically, it's really about fine-tuning the traffic. And I think the smart people in talent are really looking at how they do that and how they control those parts of the journey, or what I would call the funnel. So really important points. But we're still on the heat map, and but definitely check it out. Have a go of it, check it out, because I think you'll be surprised what you do find out. So go and check out someone like Crazy
Yeah,
Egg.
and I think Hotjar as well is another one. I think it's free. You can go and you can
Yeah,
get a free trial account,
yeah,
and you can HOTJAR, and it's another way of getting some a little bit more understanding of what's actually going on these pages.
yeah. Okay, great. So ultimately, I guess what we're trying to talk is that there's a big difference between make candidate do things versus make candidates want to do things. Now I believe, although I do believe we're turning the corner, with platforms like yours, it's actually the tech is actually putting the candidate at the center of the universe, and the tech is enabling us to attract and engage and help create a journey that encourages them and encourages them to want to do things with us. Whereas I think if you go back a couple of years, especially certain ATS platforms, the tech's designed to manage the process, not to encourage the candidate. And I think, we're moving to a place now where it's like, how do we understand the candidate? How do we understand that persona? How do we encourage them to want to be part of it? How do we get the content right to encourage them along the journey? How do we get passive candidates and turn them into people who want to work with us? What types of calls to actions do we need to put to help them want to do something? And looking at that journey in those user maps, imagine you're walking through it in their shoes. In fact, I ask you all, you don't need to, obviously you can't answer me now, but when I actually say to people, have you actually tried to apply for one of your own jobs on your careers website in the last week? If I had 100 people in front of me, probably only 2 people put their hands up. And go through the process, go searching for information in Google about your company, see what you find. Is it brand led? Is it from yourselves? Or is it from your competitors? Or is it from agencies? Is it from Indeed? Is it doing what you want that encourages the candidates to come into your career site? And when you're in there, what does it feel like? Do I find what I'm expecting? What am I thinking? What are the questions? How does it encourage me to want me to take the next step? And just make it easy. Just make it easy.
I have a really good example that I've seen recently on that, Dave. And what we saw was it's in healthcare, and it's a pretty good idea, but I think it could be just done a little bit differently. And what they do is they have a realistic job preview video, and they won't let you click the apply button until you actually complete the realistic job preview. And we've proposed them an alternative whereby they let everybody click the apply button, capture their details, and they don't apply, they register interest. They then send everybody the video, and they then monitor for the people who actually go to the trouble of looking at the video afterwards, and then start to use that process to filter down the people who are generally interested in working with them, rather than the fact that they were made look at the video and they were still going to look at that video to complete the apply process because their job was to get an application done that day.
Yeah, it's a good example. And again, you can test these things, and look at the response and see how it works. And that's what's happening there is you're really thinking about the persona and thinking, right, what's the best way of encouraging them to do this, and what's the smart way, and then how do we get them earlier up the funnel and then nurture them? Do we get them low down the funnel where they're more ready to act? And actually, the answer is you probably need to do both somehow. But that's a really good example. So just to kind of round up, really, we're pretty much on 40 minutes. I think the first thing for me is, I feel like I've been saying this for years now, it's really about understanding those people that are going to use the website. This is not for you, the brand. This is about run some persona workshop and actually understand them and then do those user journeys. You literally do them on the wall. It's like, okay, I come in and I do this. And then if you can, how do you listen? How do you listen to that feedback? What's the voice of the candidate? I think Stephen Covey said, people listen to reply, not to understand. Let's listen to understand. The example Shane was talking about with the live chat or the feedback on the page, it's absolutely spot on. Tell us, speak to us, even get people in who are candidates or who were candidates and walk through the journey, map out the journey and walk through the journey. And think about how you can personalize it. A job detail page for someone who's going to be in IT and an analyst, or an analyst wants more detail. They want the detail. They're going to be asking questions. They probably need more convincing. They're probably a bit more rational in their thinking. Whereas someone who might be working, I don't know, on the shop floor in customer service, they're going to be a little bit more energetic, a little bit more, maybe a bit more spontaneous. They probably don't need as much detail, but they want to emotionally look like it's the place to work that they're going to enjoy. And the content's going to be different. And content's not just written, by the way, clearly it's not just written. That helps build trust. We want to build trust into our users, but we also want Google to trust us. So let's not forget about SEO. It's a massive untapped opportunity. We're seeing it's 40 times more powerful than social media in generating applications. And ultimately, be human. It is human beings just like you and me on the other side of a screen. This is about helping bringing people towards you so you can have a conversation with you.
I think the most powerful thing you can do is try and put yourself in the shoes of that person.
Yeah.
Maybe making the application, maybe it's their first job out of college, maybe it's they're making that application, it's 9 o'clock at night, the kids are screaming in the background and they need to find a new job. I think if you can put yourself in the candidate's shoes, you really can speak to them in a way that can engage them and actually make them really want to work with your organization.
That's a great shout. Yeah, my kids are always screaming in the background, mate. Okay, awesome. Okay. So, yeah.
That's great. Thank you very much, Dave. I think we probably have a couple of questions coming in here. If you'd like to pop them up, guys, and we can hopefully answer them.
Yeah. Okay.
So here's one, Dave, that I'm just seeing coming through. It's around SEO. Yeah. So and I think I'm going to paraphrase the question. SEO is moved on. Well, I think with the person asking, does it need any real technical stuff? And I think the answer is you'll speak to this better. There is some basic technical stuff that most websites do automatically, but it's moved away from this world of black hat stuff and jamming stuff full of keywords. So maybe you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So great question. In fact, we can probably do a webinar just on SEO. But it's absolutely so. Years gone by, technically used to be really important. But you know what? The foundations, that's kind of a given now. Basically, can the website be read by Google? That's really important because if you can't read the content, you're doomed. It can't rank it. If you can't read it, can't rank it. Now, unfortunately, in this world, there are ATSs out there that stop that. So you need to fix that. That might need fixing. But in general, the technical thing isn't as important. Speed is important, though. Now, how the site's technically built, and is it mobile responsive, and does it load its pages within under 3 seconds? That's important, and technical does impact, but actually it's more important because it gives experience. If you're on a mobile device, you're on your phone, and you're searching around a site, and if a page is taking more than a couple of seconds, you're going to be gone. And actually there's a new thing called Google AMP, which stands for Accelerated Mobile Pages. That's for another story. That's a technical thing that people need to be thinking about. Actually, SEO is about putting the customer first, candidate first, content second, forget about Google. There are some technical things. It's, you've got to have, it's got to be a couple of keywords. If the page is about HR, the future of HR, tech or whatever, then they're sort of the topic, but it's about the topics around the keywords. It's about the questions that people might ask. Get that right. Great content, not just loads of content, but content that answers those questions, that helps that user, that candidate at that time solve their problems, that gets engaged with, gives that great experience. And if we give a great experience, the content's got to be right. And if that's right, people will talk about it for you and they'll share it socially. Digital word of mouth. So great SEO is a bit of, we've got to have the foundations right, but more than anything, we've got to have content that's great, answers our customers' questions. It's got to give you a great experience, and then they're going to talk about it, digital word of mouth. And it does take time.
We've another one for you, Dave. It's why is marketing becoming more and more important to the world of recruitment? And I know this is, you a bit like me, were more from the world of sales and marketing than you were from recruitment initially. So I think perhaps you can answer that.
That's a really good question. And, I could talk about this one for hours. I think basically what it is, first of all, if you look at the world at the moment, there is a talent shortage. Talent. Everybody wants talented people in their business. Everybody wants growth. But what we've got to do is we've got to work hard to find them. We've got to work hard to understand them. We've got to work hard to put something in front of them that gets their attention and brings them towards us. We then got to be able to start having some kind of conversation with them and nurture them to they want to do business with us. That is marketing. That is the same. If I'm selling iPhones online, I've got to understand the customer, I've got to understand my product, I've got to understand why it's good to use, I've got to understand where the people who might buy that product might be, where they hang out, and then got to put things in front of them that gets them excited, brings them towards me, nurtures them, etc. That's marketing. Basically, take the iPhone, turn that into a person, and that's it. It's how we get to them. And it's not, in marketing, the big trend outside of talent, the big thing that everyone's looking at is CX. Customer experience is a big thing right now in marketing. In fact, there's huge debates on who owns CX, but that's another thing. And so the way we attract and engage talent now, it's all about marketing. And actually, it's massively important, the experience you give them, because your candidate experience will have an impact on what they feel and think about you as a brand. And that's why you invest in employer brand. That's why you have your EVP. It's almost like, what's your USPs? How do we get them in front of those candidates that we want to attract and then bring them towards us in this? It's such a cliche thing now, I don't even want to say it, but this war for talent, the fact is it's competitive. So we have to think about how we position ourselves and market ourselves to be attracted to those that we want.
And I think you can sum it up, Dave, with this. And I've run e-commerce businesses before, and in the idealized version of the world, everybody rocks up, hits the apply or hits the buy button, and gives you money. And that world is no more. There's a million people selling a million different things online. So you have to, it is not as easy as that. And I think likewise with jobs, we're finding more and more that the really high value talent that we all want to get into our organizations are not always the ones who are clicking on the apply button.
Absolutely. Everybody out there now, just think about, the last time you went to look for jobs online. It's massively competitive, hugely competitive. So we have to apply methodologies and thinking that gets you ahead of the competition, and that is marketing and sales. When your teams are speaking to these people, yes, they've got to be authentic and genuine, but they are selling the role. They're pitching your organization. They're pitching the opportunity. Let's be real. That's what they're doing. It's sales and marketing. Yes, recruitment, of course, it's big. There's the process and everything else, but sales and marketing is absolutely. It's not replacing recruitment, because recruitment's, it's part of recruitment now. Sales and marketing is absolutely vital to you getting this talent towards your organization.
I've one last question here, and we'll try and give people back 5 minutes in their hour, and it's very straightforward. What types of content resonate best with candidates? It would have been a great question for Bill, because I know I've worked with the idealized, socialized job description. But maybe you'd like to get started on it, Dave, and I'll pull up some information here I have in the background, and perhaps try and answer it the way he would.
Okay, so that is a really interesting question, and I think everyone talks about their EVP. Bill does talk a bit about it's almost like the individual value proposition. What's in it for me? As a candidate viewing your company, your organization, a lot of people are, okay, what is actually in it for me? Not just about what your company does and, how it impacts the customer and the EVP and what it's like to work there. Just think about the questions you asked. So we did a lot of work with Virgin Media. A lot of the questions were around, who is it I am actually going to be working for? What's their vision of their department? What's their team like? What are they striving to achieve? What is their impact on the business and the customer? Well, that's the type of stuff that I want to know. And then what's in it for me? What do I get? But what's my part of the potential story there? How am I going to add value to that? And how are you going to help me and encourage me to move along that journey with you? And that's the type of questions that are going on in my mind. Which means that's the type of content I need to help me. And it's about whereabouts. If you imagine a funnel, a marketing funnel, at the top of funnel, it's kind of content that gets me awareness and gets me interested. And that might be stuff about future challenges with it. So the HR manager, if you're producing content about what's going on in my HR world that's of interest to me, that will get my attention. If I become more a passive candidate and looking for a job, what are the things that I would ask if I'm having a conversation with you that help me make the decision to take the job? We'll get that information online. And it's not just about salaries and all that. It's about what's it like and feel like to work there. Who are the people I'm going to be working with? What's my part of the story?
Yeah, I think 100%, and I think it's the work, the duties, responsibilities, the purpose, and the environment. It's the person. What does the business think the ideal candidate looks like? It's the process. What's the hiring
Yeah.
process for the job? What can I expect next? It's the people, obviously, who are the successful hires going to be working with, and then of course it is the culture. And I think each of those sort of 5 pillars can be summed up different ways. Sometimes it's going to be pictures, sometimes it's going to be words on a page, and sometimes it's going to be videos. And I think a combination of all those is hugely powerful. But again, I think there's a webinar on that in itself, and probably
Yeah.
one we'll try and rope Bill into down the road. Well, listen, I think
Great.
a good time to wrap it up, everybody. Thank you all for joining. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time. I think we will be sending on everybody there's 2 pieces of content. One is mapping the candidate journey, a guide, and then there's a comprehensive guide to SEO for careers websites. Dave, any last comments, and I'll let you wrap up.
No, it's been great. And I actually, I'd love to know anybody. I know when we shut this down, there's a feedback. If you've got any other questions or anything you'd like to know more about, because a couple of ideas have come up, like you've just mentioned one there, Shane. We'd love to help out. This is about helping everybody get better at this stuff. And but thanks, I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, certainly in terms of content, we're starting to learn so much now about what content is starting to work, but we're only really, and we've got really in-depth analytics in Clinch on behalf of our clients, but it's still the start of that journey in terms of really figuring out what works and what doesn't. So we look forward to updating you as we move through that journey.
Great. That's it then, Shane. I think that's a wrap. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Good night from Scotland.
Yeah, and it's goodbye from the centre universe in Liverpool. Bye now.
Thanks very much, everybody.